We are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly. We're going to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
President Donald Trump, in a primetime address last night, insisted the U.S. is annihilating Iran's nuclear power and winning big in taking out a terrorist regime. This morning, a lot to unpack from that speech, as many Americans feel this war's impact here at home. We're bringing in Elon Poll director and political science professor, Dr. Jason Husser. Jason, first, what was your assessment of the tone and apparent confidence the president exuded in that speech last night?
In many ways, this speech was President Trump's biggest moment to date, in which he's trying to sell the American public on his actions in Iran. This has been a major conflict, but it's been one a bit unlike a lot of other major U.S. deployments, in which we see presidents talking for weeks or months about how action's going to take place, building up a case for the war. What I saw last night was President Trump talking about a case in which he's not going to commit the U.S. to large-scale ground forces. He did make allusions that the war was not going to continue or lead into the type of quagmire that many point to with Iraq or Afghanistan. That's important since President Trump ran on a policy of not going into new wars or long-term conflicts. We will see, though, how that plays out in weeks ahead as the U.S. military continues its actions.
In the last 24 hours, interestingly, Elon Poll pushed out a fascinating new poll of North Carolina voters. One question you asked was, overall, do you support or oppose current military involvement by the U.S. in Iran? And I thought it was interesting, more than half oppose the war. Did that surprise you, given that North Carolina picked Trump the last 3 elections?
We found some numbers consistent with what a number of national pollsters have found, which is that this war tends to have more people opposed to it than supportive of it. That said, President Trump still enjoys majority support among Republicans for the war. Around 60% of Republicans in North Carolina supported the conflict in Iran or the U.S. military involvement. But where people really pushed back against the war was the idea of potentially committing large numbers of ground troops. When it came to the question about ground troops, we found that most North Carolinians, regardless of party, did not want to see escalation in that direction.
How do Americans feel about safety? Will they be more or less safe as a result of the actions in Iran? That was another question you polled, and something the president addressed directly last night, assuring global safety in that speech.
We found that North Carolinians' views about safety tend to be highly related to their views about the president and the conflict as a whole. Those who thought that the president was doing a good job as a whole, or thought that the conflict overall was worth it, tended to also think that it was going to make us safer. That tended to be Republicans and independents who voted for President Trump. When it comes to Democrats, though, overwhelmingly Democrats thought that this was a conflict not making the United States safer.
I want to get into gas prices in our remaining time here. The president criticized allies for not doing their part, he said, to control the Strait of Hormuz. Did you perceive that as a warning that he might be serious about pulling the U.S. out of NATO if allies don't get involved in this?
The president has long talked about the need for European countries to increase military spending and wanting to see the U.S. less focused on Europe. Some analysts have pointed out perhaps that's rediverting U.S. military efforts to Asia and the need of sort of being stretched too thin. It's not clear to me how serious that sort of threat of pulling out of NATO is. NATO has been a cornerstone alliance since the Cold War. It's been one of those things that just feels like it's a permanent institution, but it has certainly been under tension in ways that we've never seen before in American history in the most recent conflict in Iran.
Jason, thank you so much. More we want to talk about. You're going to be sticking with us for our 7 o'clock hour streaming on WFMY+. We'll also dive in to birthright citizenship and that case before the U.S. Supreme Court.